Hey, I'm Adam Jusko from ProbMoney.com, and in this video I'm going to attempt to answer a common credit utilization question for people that are trying to maximize their credit score. And that question is, should I worry about credit utilization across all of my credit cards overall in total, or should I be worrying about credit utilization on a per card basis, what credit utilization I have on each individual card? But before we talk about that, I'm going to ask you to please subscribe to this YouTube channel if you have not already, and if you have already, I thank you for doing so. So if you are someone that is paying a lot of attention to your credit score and want to maximize it, you probably know that credit utilization is an important piece to the credit score puzzle. So you don't want to use too much of the credit available to you. What too much means sort of varies depending on who you're talking to or how important it is to you to get your credit score up. So oftentimes we say you need to keep it under 30%. If you really want to maximize, keeping under 10% of the available credit is advisable. However, the question is, when we talk about, maybe 30% or under 10%, are we talking about across all of your cards, or are we talking about every single individual card should be under those numbers? So as I'm making this video within the last 2 weeks on the My FICO discussion forums, some FICO reps actually came on and did an Ask Me Anything, where they allowed people in the forum to ask whatever questions they might have about credit scoring, and the people from FICO would try to answer those questions. Now, there were some very interesting answers, and a lot of them sort of left vague in a way that probably were not completely satisfying to everybody that asked the question, but you definitely should check it out because there were some interesting things there. I'll put a link to it down below. But anyway, one of the questions did have to do with credit utilization. It basically was the question we're asking here: does credit utilization matter overall, or does it matter per card as well? And the answer from Tom Quinn from FICO is one that should make it pretty clear that it's both, and I'm going to read it to you. He said, to more accurately predict future risk, the balance and utilization characteristics consider all accounts combined as well as the highest utilization on an individual account. Now, what he didn't say is whether one matters more than the other, but clearly both of them matter. So if you are worried about credit utilization, want to maximize your credit score, you want to be looking at utilization across all your cards, and you want to be looking at whatever card has the highest credit utilization, because that factors in as well. All right, so let's use an example, and I will give you my interpretation of what that potentially could mean to you. Let's say you had 4 credit cards, and between those 4 cards, you have $10,000 of available credit. And let's say on each one of those 4 cards, you have a $500 balance. 4 cards times 500, that means you've got $2,000 in balances between those 4 cards. Your available credit, $10,000, you're using 20% of that available credit. That is your credit utilization across all the cards. But let's say in a slightly different scenario, you had those same 4 cards, that same $10,000 of overall available credit, but card number 1 had a 0 balance, card number 2 had a 0 balance, card number 3 had a 0 balance, card number 4 has a $2,000 balance, and let's say that particular card had a $2,500 credit limit. So overall, with that $10,000, you still only have a $2,000 balance. You're still only using 20% overall, but on that card where you have a $2,000 balance on a $2,500 limit, you're using 80%, and that is where you could be hurt. Now, on the surface, this might not seem fair. It seems like maybe you're getting punished for having an 80% utilization on one card, even though you have 3 cards that you're not touching at all in that second scenario, where in the first scenario, you're using all 4 cards. Yeah, you're keeping at that 20%, but you have a balance on all of them, where in the second scenario, you don't even have any balance on 3 of the cards. Well, one of the things that was made very clear on the My FICO forums was that these credit decisions and how the credit scoring models are put together are not just based on what is intuitive or what seems to make sense. They are based on a lot of research and a lot of experience in terms of what happens with people that have already done all these various behaviors. So if they are seeing that credit utilization across the board is important, but people that have a high credit utilization on any one particular card also are more of a risk, they don't care whether it's intuitive or whether it seems fair. What they care about is whether that shows that those people are a higher risk. Their goal is to make their model something that the banks can rely on so that they can figure out how much of a risk any individual person is. So obviously the numbers tell them that both of those things are important, even if they look like they're the same on the surface. All right, so credit utilization matters across all cards, and it also matters on any individual card. In particular, it matters on the card that has the highest credit utilization, because that is what FICO is telling us. Now, why would that be? If you really think about it, it's sort of logical. So think about those same scenarios I just said. You have a person B with 4 credit cards, and each one of those is at a 20% utilization. Well, that looks like someone that has 4 credit cards that they are actively using, and they are keeping them all at sort of a reasonable level in terms of their balances in comparison to the available credit. However, in scenario B, you have somebody else that also might be using 20% overall, but they have 4 credit cards, 3 of them that don't appear as if they're being used at all. They have 0 balances, and then there's 1 card that has an 80% utilization. So what that sort of looks like is, yes, you have 4 cards, yes, you have $10,000 in available credit overall, but 3 of those cards probably are sitting in a sock drawer somewhere, and you have 1 card that is your go-to card, and you are using it a lot, and you're getting up toward that higher limit. So in a way, it's almost like even though you have that $10,000 credit limit, if you're not using any of those other cards, if they're not really part of your spending life, then it's almost like you have that 1 card with the $2,500 limit, and you're using 80% of that limit, because the other ones really aren't coming into play. Yes, you could make the case that you're being disciplined by not using them, but probably in your mind, they're not even part of what you would consider using as payment. I have probably 10 or 15 credit cards, but maybe only 4 or 5 of them that I use on any regular basis. So if you were looking at me and trying to do a sort of risk profile on me, you would be better off to look at those 4 or 5 cards that I use on a regular basis and see how I behave with those cards than you really would be to say, how do I behave across all of those other cards? Because basically the other ones aren't getting used. They're not really even part of my life anymore in a way, even though the accounts are still open. So really what's being used is probably more important than everything that you actually have available to you. All right, now what do you do with this information? Well, the obvious answer would be to say, spread your spending out among multiple cards so that no individual card has too high of a balance or too high of a utilization. But I would make the case that you probably instead should try to get credit line increases on the cards that matter the most to you, so that the utilization on those individual cards is not in a danger zone. Not get a higher credit line on cards that you're not using, get it on those cards individually, because we know that it matters what the utilization is on any individual card. Now that idea could create sort of a catch-22, because of the fact that if you have an individual card that maybe you're using 80% of the available credit line right now, and you go to the credit card company and you say, hey, can you increase that credit line? I'm almost to the top. They're more likely to look at it and say, well, you're using almost all of your available credit. We don't necessarily trust you. We're not going to give you more credit so that you can use even more of it and build up more debt. So what you probably want to do is to try to reduce the debt on that card that is important to you, where you want that credit line increase, to show that you can pay down that debt. So yes, you might use a higher balance from time to time, but you also have the ability to pay that down. And that shows the credit card companies that you're not just going to keep increasing that balance and using more and more of whatever credit line they give you. So that is probably the better way to do it if you're trying to get a credit line increase on the card that gives you the best rewards or has the lowest interest rate, or whatever the reason is that you have decided 1 or 2 cards are your go-to cards. Those are the places to try to get your credit line increases, but try to do it when you aren't way up in terms of credit utilization. So that's it. To sum up, credit utilization matters across all of your cards, but it also matters per card. In particular, it matters with whatever individual card has the highest credit utilization currently. That's it for this video. Comments, questions, please put them in the comment section below. Otherwise, I thank you for watching, and as always, please go to proudmoney.com, where we do credit card reviews. We talk personal finance, we talk deals, and all sorts of other fun stuff too. Thanks for watching. Bye.